Hey guys, welcome to Warhammer Stuff. Today we have Adeptus Mechanicus Forge World Ryza versus the Black Templars. So let's go ahead and check out the armies.
Alright, so for me, I am bringing the Black Templars. I have 2,000 points of Black Templars in a battalion detachment. I have 1 CP left over. I'm starting first, my Warlord. This is the Chaplain model, but he's a Captain, because I figured it was more fitting. So I have a Captain in Terminator armor. He has a Warlord trait and a Relic. His Warlord trait is Master of Arms. At the start of the fight phase, he can always fight first, and he has 1 extra attack. And his Relic is Tannhauser's Bones, which is every time an attack is allocated to him, the damage characteristic is reduced to 1. He has a Melta-Gun, or a Combi Melta, and a Relic Blade. After that, we have, of course, the Emperor's Champion. Very strong unit, anti-character. He has a Warlord trait, a Martial Superiority. Oh, wait, no. He has a Warlord trait, Frontline Commander. Add 1 to advance and charge rolls for the Warlord. And if Templar Corps charges in the same target that he's in, they get +1 to charge. So he's an advanced unit. Then in my elite section, but is a character, the Apothecary, which has Selfless Healer given to them, so that they can use their combat restorative abilities twice. And yeah. Then I have Chaplain Grimaldus for his infantry buffs, for all the litanies he gives. He gives, whatchamacallit? He has, of course, the Litany of Hate, but he has the Psalm of Remorseless Persecution and Verdant Acclaim, which is basically Remorseless Persecution. Up to 6 unmodified wound rolls of 6 do a mortal wound in addition to any damage. I can give that to a squad. Fervent Acclamation, I can select a vow, the positive aspect of a vow that a unit does not have, and give it to them. So that's going to be very useful. And on to troops. So I have 1 squad of Initiates, 10 Initiates, and 9 Neophytes. The Neophytes have combat blades, and the Initiates have chainswords. And the Sergeant also has a chainsword, but I accidentally forgot to click that button in the thing, but he has a chainsword like everything else, not a bolt gun. And so this big unit of Crusaders. Then I have 2 units of Infiltrators holding up the back line. Since this army is very push heavy, I really need to make sure the back is clear. And so these guys are going to sit back and do absolutely nothing except shoot and be strategically important and hold objectives. And they also have a Helix Gauntlet each to make them even tougher. Then on to my elites. I have, actually I'll start with the Redemptors. So I have a Redemptor Dreadnought that has Macro Plasma Incinerators as well as the Rocket Pod. Then I have one that has the Onslaught Gatling Cannon. So one that's anti-tank and one that's anti-person. And then for my other elite, I have a squad of Assault Centurions, 4 in their number. But more specifically, the Sergeant is special because he has received the ability Champion of the Feast for another CP. And basically what this does is, it can only be given to a Sergeant or a Sword Brother, which he does. It adds 1 to his attack, wounds, and his weapon skill is increased by 1. So he will have weapon skill 2, 5 wounds, and 5 attacks. Hitting on 2s is a big deal, and with their weapon, Siege Drills, very strong, absolutely strong. And they all have Melta-Guns and Hurricane Bolters. And then, a Land Raider Crusader. So this vehicle is, I bring him to basically transport all my guys, but Black Templars have a stratagem that allows me to basically have my guys pop out and charge after the vehicle has moved. Very useful, and the only good Land Raider. And that is 2,000 points exactly of Black Templars.
Alright you guys, so I have 2,000 points of Forge World Ryza. Now Ryza is more of a melee-centric Forge World, and I say that because of their rules. Let's run over to that really quick. So basically, each time I make a melee attack, if I was charged, or performed a heroic intervention, I get +1 to wound, so that's pretty cool. And then I get +1 on my charge rolls for my army. They also have a really cool trait that adds a single damage to plasma shots. It is 2 CP, but that's, its own problem. But I chose Ryza because I was like, man, everyone always just shoots a bunch of stuff with AdMech, and I was like, well, I want to try a melee thing, because they have some units, like, they have some punch. I've never really seen it. I'm worried that there's a reason, but we'll find out. So, I have for my warlord and only character my Skitari Marshal. Now he has a relic, which is basically a gun that auto wounds on 4-ups, and it's AP -2 at 2 damage, so that's pretty cool. But then he also has the Warlord trait, which is Battlesphere Uplink, which basically I get to pick a Skitari core unit within 9 inches or a data tether unit anywhere on the battlefield and make sure that they don't suffer penalty rolls for firing if they moved and used a heavy weapon or ran and used an assault weapon. So that'll just help kind of my shooting that's moving around. Over in troops, now I don't know if I'm going to regret this, having units that are both Canticles of the Omnissiah and Doctrina Imperatives. I think that might be confusing, but we'll see. So I have Cataphren Breachers, a squad of 4, and they all have Torsion Cannons and Hydraulic Claws. So they're really mean in combat, and they're really mean at shooting. Granted, they only have 4 shots, and they're Ballistic Skill 4, but, you know. I'm hoping they'll be really mean in shooting. And then the other troop choice, which I didn't need because this is an Outrider detachment, by the way. So I just wanted to take them as kind of hopefully slow-moving but destructive units, is the Cataphren Destroyers. Now, these all have the Plasma Culverines to try and take advantage of the Ryza stratagem, and Phosphor Blasters. And I believe they have a claw of some kind as well. No, it would seem not. They're just shooters. All right, and then that's it for my troops. Moving into my elites, I have a squad of 10 Corpse Sakari Electro Priests. I wasn't really sure what I was facing today, and I was like, these guys have a lot of attacks, and 6s to hit gain 2 additional hits, which is pretty cool. And then they have some other rules, but I thought they were a really cool unit. I figure if he has like a chaff unit somewhere, they might be able to go and unchaff them. And that is the hope there. The other elite is Sicarian Rust Stalkers. Now these guys, I'm not super sure if they're going to do very well, but they all have the Transonic Blades. So 6s to wound, inflict mortal wounds in addition to any normal damage. Their weapons are only 1 damage, but you know, the mortal wounds I thought was really cool. They have a lot of attacks. And the Sergeant here has, or the Princeps, I think is his name. I gave him a Warlord trait, which gives him and Skitari core units within 6 inches, which is basically all of my Skitari core units. Unmodified hit rolls of 6 score an additional hit. So there's a exploding 6's melee bubble that he's going to have on him. That's going to be pretty cool. And then moving into my fast attacks. So I have a squad of full Cerberus Sulfur Hounds. And 2 of them have the carbines, the Phosphor Blast carbines, and then a pistol, and then the regular stuff. And then the Alpha is normal. The only, I guess, option is the carbine guys. And then I have a squad of Cerberus Raiders. Wait, sorry. I just need to make sure I didn't give this guy something. Oh, I did. I gave this Cerberus Sulfur Hounds guy a stratagem, Archived Engagements. Which basically he can make a core data tether unit fight first. So anyway, so the Cerberus Raiders, they're just a squad of 10. They just have the normal stuff. There's nothing crazy on them. And they don't have any whatever. I did give them the enhanced data tether, so that way they can be targeted for stuff wherever they're at, because they will be just running around and shooting stuff, I hope. And then this is where the heavy hitters come in, the back, and these are just 2 squads of Sidonian Dragoons. They don't have a sergeant or anything, so you can't really give them anything, but they have the Sidonian Taser Lance, which is +3 strength, AP -2, 2 damage, and unmodified hit rolls of 6 score 2 additional hits. And they have the data tether keyword. And they're -1 to hit at all times, and so I just thought that they would be really cool, really fast. I think I actually didn't look at their speed. 10 inch, okay, yeah. So I kind of wanted a really fast, kind of hard-hitting army for AdMech. I've never really seen someone do this, so I thought it would be interesting. And that is 2,000 points of Adeptus Mechanicus.
All right, so for today's mission, we have Conversion, which is 2/2. Which is Control 1, Control 2, Control More. And the mission secondary is you gain 2 points if you control any of the No Man's Land objectives, and You gain 4 points if you control the backline objective, but you will lose a point if you do not control your home objective. And that's pretty much it. Oh, and also, if you can only gain the Battleforged command points if your warlord is on the battlefield or in a transport. If he's dead or off the battlefield through deep striking, you will not gain your Battleforged CP. So it's very important to keep alive. And that is the mission today. Alright then, so for secondaries, for the Black Templars, shock tactics. I'm going to be aggressive, going to take objectives. We'll see what happens. Grind them down. He has a lot more units than me, and so I'm figuring that this might work. And then retrieve Nephilim data. He has no backwards deep striking or anything like that, so my infiltrators are basically doing nothing. So I am adapting to that, so they'll be busy doing Nephilim data. And those are all my secondaries. Let's see if I am right in the end.
Yes, so I am doing accretion or accretion of knowledge, which is almost like a really fancy assassination. So I get 3 points if I kill an enemy model that has a warlord trait, has a relic, or is a vehicle with 14 wounds or more. So that's all of his characters. I think that's his assault centurion sergeant, and that's his land raider. I think. Then I have uncharted sequencing. Basically, I pick an order of objectives, and if I control them at the end of that turn, or battle round. Battle round. I get 3 points from that. And then Nephilim data. I have a speedy army. I couldn't really think of a solid third one, so I figured this would be maybe okay. And those are my secondaries.
Alright, so for deployment, the Mechanicus would set up first. Since the battlefields are so uniform, it doesn't matter which is attacker and defender. These maps are like that. And so, essentially, for Black Templars, the overall idea was... first, the infiltrator I wanted to set up to be able to get Nephilim data in the bottom right corner, because that'd be the most safe. If I went second, I have a pretty good feeling that they would survive the first turn so they could get that off. I have infiltrators on my back line, on my home objective. Now, one thing to note is the red infiltrators is that they're on the top floor of 3 floors, so even if a guy gets within close combat range on the screen, they won't be able to fight until the next turn going up a level. And so they're pretty safe from melee. And then as far as the rest of it goes, my Redemptor Dreadnoughts each split off to take one side of the battlefield. The one with the machine gun went on the right, one with the plasma weapons went up north. The Initiates with the chainsword are very close towards the middle. The Land Raider Crusader gets first dibs on all the most open areas, so the middle. Stupid terrain's in the way, so it'll be a little slowed down, but that's fine. So they are carrying my commander, my apothecary, and of course my entire unit of centurions, because I have a space of 16 in there, so I just barely fit. Centurions take 3, Terminator takes 2, and regular guy takes 1. So if my math is correct, I'm pretty good. And then Grimaldus is supporting the Initiates, and the Emperor's Champion is on the bottom alone next to the Redemptor Dreadnought, and because he's a vehicle and stuff, the Emperor's Champion cannot be selected for shooting. It's just like he's an anti-character killer, but my opponent has only one character into the range guy, so it's like, okay, alright, we'll see how that goes. And that was entirely the strategy and ideas going in through here, playing my own game and not really countering my opponent.
Yeah, well, I think that kind of makes both of us. Originally, I was planning on sitting further back because of my army being more mobile, and then somehow I ended up like this. So, I don't know how that happened. But, so I have some pretty mobile units, so like the fastest ones, I believe... Yes, okay. I actually didn't look at their movements. I just assumed. I had off to the farthest edges because, again, I too have Nephilim data. However, upon reading Nephilim data, it can only be done by infantry and bikers, of which neither of my Cerberus units are. They are beasts, or cavalry. So that was an unfortunate blow. So I only have like 3 units that can do Nephilim, and they're the slowest units. Oh, 4, but still. Anyway, and so basically, I wanted like the stronger stuff and the more important stuff to be hidden, in case he goes first. And I wasn't really trying to counter anything. Most of my units should be okay at handling whatever he has, as far as like even blows go. Now, shooting wise, I don't know, but again, I don't know. Because first time playing it AdMech, I'm not quite sure. They look okay on paper. We'll see what actually happens. But I am kind of excited. So yeah, I didn't really have so much of a plan as opposed to just trying to avoid getting hit on a first turn and going around and creeping on stuff.
Alright, so for our battle, who should go first? You spoke up first the last time, so I will do it this time. So for me, I want to go first to basically get a pot shot off on a lot of your soft, squishy infantry and get into better positions because I'm in melee. And that's pretty much it. I'll get off a good, safe first turn Nephilim data with my red squad of infiltrators, and the game will go pretty much in my favor after that. Well, it'll be a strong lead from the start. If I go second, I'll just get pummeled and get a bunch of unnecessary wounds. You'll push out, and I may get a first turn charge, but it won't be matched against the best targets for me. So for me, going first would be the best. That way I can set up the best positions, get a lot of early points, early leads, and yeah, and I want to go first. That's basically what I'm saying. Yeah.
Weirdly enough, I want to go second. I have a more mobile army, sure. So going first does have like movement benefits for me. But I think not that I have like any real charge procs, but I would rather do the charging than be charged. And most of my units are pretty hidden, so or in terrain at least. That way they get a light cover save. So if you do shoot them, like they're already kind of protected. So I would rather go second. Also, it helps with my secondary, where I have to control something at the end of the battle round. So if I go second, I think it's easier for me to pull that off. I could be wrong. And yeah, that's it.
Well, all right then.
Yeah.
Let's see if we get what we want.
That's the extent of my thoughts.
Yeah.
So let's see.
The game could stop freezing every second.
I
4.
know, literally. Oh my gosh, mine didn't even roll. Hold on. Okay, it rolled, but it's a 3.
Yeah, it's because I moved the objectives up because there's grass, and some of the objectives were so hard to see.
That's why it rolled a little on the button, and then it hit the edge of the objective. It's okay, I don't care.
It happened to me too, like mine flipped on top, but alright. So Black Templars, turn 1.
Alright, you guys, so basically my Cerberus Raiders just had a free move. Now, they had 12 inches, but obviously knowing that he's going first, I'm not about to just run them out in the middle of the field. You know, I've made some bad choices, but not that bad. So they just moved out into the cover a little closer, so that way they could just super easily grab this objective. And that was it.
Alright, so for the movement phase, well, actually, first in the command phase, the Chaplain Grimaldus gave the Initiates, the big squad, a Psalm of Remorseless Persecution, which basically means 6s to wound, cause a mortal wound in addition to any normal damage up to 6 wounds, and Litany of Hate, so they will all reroll to hit in melee. And then after that, Redemptor Dreadnought on the left moved up to get line of sight. Redemptor Dreadnought on the bottom moved 6 inches because he was touching that Mud Springs thing, which subtracts 2 inches. Emperor's Champion ran, got into a perfect position for setup for the next turn. My Land Raider did not run, but moved forward 8 inches onto the center objective. The Neophytes ran, or the Initiates ran, 6 inches, but I only moved them up to 7. So to prepare for the counter charge, I placed them such a distance from the wall that he can't charge me through the wall and get his bases in there within half. He has to go all the way around, which is more difficult to do. And I used the Neophytes to block off the bottom part and moved the Initiates on the left down further. And then ran Chaplain Grimaldus, so to make sure he was in a good spot, and I placed him in a spot where he can heroically intervene, and as well as be safe from shooting, because he is not the closest It'd be difficult for him to be the closest. And yeah, and then the bottom right infiltrators are doing Nephilim data, which they will succeed at the end of the turn. And that is my movement phase. Alright, so for my shooting phase, first Land Raider was up, and they shot at the Sicarian Ruststalkers that was right above them. However, it turns out that they have a lot of bonuses against single damage, so they got hit with 24 Hurricane Bolter shots, and they all had 2-ups against it. A bit ridiculous, and so only one failed 1 wound, and they're 2 wounds each, so that was terrible. And the multi-melta fired, and missed both shots because of the Hot Mud Springs area terrain, -1 to hit, so 50-50 chance. But my Redemptor Dreadnoughts had much better success. But Redemptor Dreadnought, my red one, fired at his Cerberus Raiders and cleaned house. Slaughtered about half of them. Really good. Then my green Redemptor Dreadnought on the bottom with the anti-infantry weapon against a bunch of 1-wound models really failed hard. Missed a lot of shots. Missed wound a lot of shots. And so only killed barely any of them. It was really disappointing. And that was my shooting phase. Alright, so it wasn't the most eventful thing. I only took the middle, and so I did get conversion, 2 points for taking the one of the no man's lands. Shock Jackets, he didn't have anything, so I couldn't take him. Grind them down, didn't kill any units, and that would be at the end of the battle round. I did get 1 Nephilim data. I had to roll on it. I got a 4 on my Nephilim data for the red squad, because that's what I needed, because of -1 if it's troops, and I only have 5 guys. So I needed a 4 rolled at, so I got 1 of those. So we'll see how this game goes. That was not as successful as I thought it would be.
Alright, you guys, so for my movement phase, first thing I did was I moved out to take control of this top left objective, because it is one of my secondaries. Also, it's an objective, so might as well. Plus, they probably won't survive much longer anyway, so I figured why not. Then my Sicarian, my Ruststalkers moved forward. They didn't run because they actually don't need a lot of range to actually get into a charge. So I just had them move over because they have 8-inch movement. They're ridiculously speedy for some reason. And then I moved next. My Corpse Sicari Electro Priest just kind of moved a little farther into the corner to that cover because I don't know what I want to do with him yet. And then the Marshal just followed along because I also don't know what I want to do with him yet either. And then my... what did I do next? I think my red Sidonian Dragoons moved through cover, or into cover, so that way the Redemptor cannot shoot them again, or shoot them in general. They were supposed to not be able to hit the Raiders either, but I guess he was out just a little more than I thought he was. And then the Sulphur Hounds ran out. I only rolled a 2, but it was just enough actually to take this objective, so that's nice. And then the Green Sidonians also kind of rolled up onto that spot, and then both of the Cataphront squads just kind of moved into alignment to be able to try and shoot down the Land Raider. And yeah, that was movement. Command phase, fun fact, the Marshal gave both of his abilities to the Sulphur Hounds, which is they don't have the deprecative effect of the Doctrina Imperative, and they do not have, and they don't suffer penalties for shooting assault weapons on a turn that they ran. And then I think that was actually it. I think the Alpha has something, but I think his is a bubble. Oh, he has fight first, but I only have 1 charge, I think, so it doesn't really matter. And yeah, so that was the movement phase. Alright, you guys, so for shooting, not a whole bunch. My Cerberus Raiders shot at Grimaldus because they're able to ignore Lookout Sir, and they were actually able to kill off all 3 of his servitors, the Cenobite servitors. And then moving across to my Sulphur Hounds, only 3 of them see as infiltrators, so they shot a lot of fails on the shots, and he had a decent save. I was able to do 1 damage against them though, so that was nice. and then the others that couldn't see them shot at the Redemptor. Of course, the only people in range were the 2 guys with the carbines. However, they still were able to sneak through 3 damage, and so they actually did 3 damage to him. And then both of my Cataphren units shot at his Land Raider, and they missed pretty much everything. I think only one thing went to his save, which he rolled a 6-4. So, and that was the shooting phase. All right, you guys. So this was a surprising turn for charges. My Sicarian Ruststalkers got in, to no one's surprise, really. And so I was able to finagle it, so that way there's only 2 that are not in combat. So almost all of them will be able to swing, and I'm hoping wipe out the squad, but we will see. And then this is where the more shocking things happen. So the Cataphren Breachers, I didn't realize could actually move through walls without impediment. So they needed a 9 because I'm Ryza, they get +1 to charge. So I actually rolled a 9 straight, and so they were actually able to get into combat with this Land Raider Crusader, which is pretty cool. And then my Sidonian Dragoons, I was like, might as well. It's a long shot. They failed horribly. They rolled like a 4 or something. But I was like, you know what? I believe in them. It's not my exact words. But so I used a command point to reroll that charge, and they actually got in with his Redemptor. So that is relatively exciting, and we will see how we go in combat. So, for the fight phase, I started with my Sicarian Stalkers, or the Rust Stalkers, I'll just call them that from now on, and I spent a command point on them for Assassin Constructs, giving them an additional attack each, bringing them up to, I can't remember how many it was, but anyway, so they had 4 attacks and then 5 attacks on the Princeps, and so it was a lot of attacks. And then they also have the thing for exploding 6s. So essentially, a lot of stuff went through, and they rolled 7 6s, so that was 7 mortal wounds that went through just as well. And so I killed most of his squad in that go, and then he interrupted with his Redemptor, and 2 of his wounds went through, so he killed off 1 of my Dragoons, and then I swung with my Cataphren Breachers, and they did 6 damage to the Crusader, because I forgot that on a charge, or if they get charged, or if they heroically intervene, they get +1 to their wound, which means they were hitting the Crusader on 2s, or wounding it at least. Their hit rolls were not great. And then I swung with my Sidonian Dragoons, and they did 5 damage to the Redemptor because he has the -1 damage thing. Otherwise, he would actually be dead. And then he swung back with his Initiates, killing off 5 of my Rust Stalkers. And then his Land Raider tried to do something and could not. So, I would say I think this combat phase was in my favor. Not 100% sure, but I think it was. So yeah.
Alright, for the morale phase, the Black Templar Initiate squad, the Red squad had to take 1. They needed a 1. They rolled a 2. So I lost 1 guy. Space Marines don't suffer from attrition effects, so I rolled again to see how it would lose. The 2s didn't count, so I lost another 1, so I lost 2 guys to morale. Now, something we forgot that his Corpus Electris Priests, in his turn, was supposed to take morale phase, and we remembered it, and they didn't do anything, so it really didn't change any gameplay effects, so we did their morale phase now. And basically, 4 of his guys ran. Really bad roll. So there's 1 guy left.
Alright, you guys, so for points, I got 2 points for conversion, because I hold an objective in No Man's Land. Accretion of Knowledge, so I was not able to kill his Land Raider, obviously. So I don't have any points there, but as his characters come into play or get into combat, hopefully I will start to get more of those. Uncharted Sequencing, so I control the objective that I thought I would at this time in the game, so 3 points. And then I got a whole bunch of nothing for Nephilim data. I don't think I'm actually going to end up getting any of that. So, yeah. That was my points.
Alright, so for the command phase, Grimaldus gave the Initiates with the Red Squad Psalm of Remorseless Persecution and Litany of Hate. So they'll be doing some good beatdowns. And then apart from that, Redemptor Dreadnought up top moved up to get on the objective and do a 50-50 split between the Ruststalkers and the Serbian Raiders. Emperor's Champion moved up to be able to probably get the Serbian Sulphur Hounds or the Sidonian Dragoons. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Infiltrators on the right moved down to get line of sight. Infiltrators on the left on home objective started doing whatchamacallit, their Nephilim data. It's because apparently we found out that vehicles, you guys can get out of vehicles even if the vehicle is in combat. You can't jump into the combat, but you can disembark if you're in combat. So the captain got out, Apothecary got out, and all of the Assault Centurions got out within 3 inches of the thing. Alright, shoot, and they can move as well. Forgot to do that. Alright, so for shooting, first the Redemptor Dreadnought up top mag dumped the raiders that were up there, and on the very last wounds he was able to kill them all off, just barely, with all of his guns. Then on the bottom, the Redemptor Dreadnought over there mag dumped the Sidonian Dragoons that he was in melee with. Now because most of his weapons were heavy, they're at -1, and because he's already bracketed, that means I was hitting on 5s. And I managed to do 5 wounds with all of his guns. So that was decent. After that, then, whatchamacallit? Then I had my Land Raider Crusader mag dump the Cataphron Breachers in front of him, and he killed 2, and did 1 wound to 1, surprisingly, despite having -1 to hit with most of his heavy weapons. And I did not fire the Assault Centurions. And then the Initiates with their pistols fired at the Ruststalkers. They killed 1 and did a wound. And then my Emperor's Champion fired at the Serbia's Sulphur Hounds and did 1 wound. And then also my Red Infiltrator Squad fired at his solo Electro Priest, and they did absolutely nothing. And that was my shooting phase. Alright, so for the charge phase, first comes up, I had my Emperor's Champion charge the Serbia Sulphur Hounds, and he made it in, he had +1 to charge, and then he overwatched and did a ton of wounds because he has a ridiculous amount of shootings and flamers. And he would have killed my Emperor's Champion, but I spent my last point to re-roll it to redo one of his saves, and he has 1 wound left. Then my Assault Centurions charged the Sidonian Dragoons. They just needed a 5. They got a 4. Terrible. And then my Captain Terminator Armor charged the Cataphron Breachers, got in. And then Grimaldus charged in. I didn't bother rolling because he was 1 inch away. And then the Redemptor Dreadnought charged. His base is so big he can hit them and also be over there. So, and that's all the charges. Alright, so the fight phase. That happened. So since he couldn't interrupt, I went with cool factor. So I had my captain swing first. And so he has 4 attacks base, 1 on the charge for shock assault and including their vow, so monster continuously having +1 attack even afterwards. And his warlord trait allows him to have an extra attack, so he has 6 attacks. He swung and he did 3 wounds total, even though that I had -1 to hit on those guys. And I forgot that the Black Templars, this vow allows me to be treated as, every time I'm in engagement range, I'm treated as I'm in an assault doctrine. So, he basically was hitting with AP -4, and he almost killed the whole squad, and then we remembered that he had AP -4, and my opponent rolled a 5 to save, which would have failed. And so then he managed to wipe out the whole squad, and then he consolidated towards the Sidonian Dragoon squad, the green one. And then I had the Emperor's Champion swing. He really does terrible if it's not a character, despite having such great stats. He killed 1 guy. 1 guy. Then up top, the Redemptor Dreadnought swung first because of movement. I didn't want to wipe out a bunch of them and then him having to move heavily off the objective. And so he swung first. He killed 1 guy. Then Grimaldus swung and he wiped out the squad by killing 3. And then my Initiates consolidated towards the Redemptor to be prepared for the next huge, ridiculous wave of stuff. And then he swung with his Sidonian Dragoons, the green squad, and just slaughtered my Redemptor Dreadnought. Didn't explode. Then my Emperor's Champion got swung on by his entire squad. They did 9, 10, 12 wounds. If he rolled a 1, he would die. And then he didn't die. And that was the end of the fight phase. Alright, so for points, I only controlled 1 at the beginning, my home objective. And then conversion, I got that because I have 1 in No Man's Land. Shock Tactics, I took the center objective fully for my opponent by wiping out that squad. My Land Raider holds it. Grind them down, I wiped out 3 squads this turn. He wiped out 1, my Dreadnought. And Nephilim Data, I failed that. I had to roll a 4 or under. I rolled a 6. So that is very disappointing. And that was my turn.
Alright, you guys, so for movement, it was relatively straightforward. My green Sidonian Dragoons moved in to wrap around his Assault Centurions. My Electro Priest and Marshal moved towards the middle. And my red Sidonians basically moved on to the objective and in range of all of his other stuff. And that was the movement phase. Oh, alright, you guys, so for my shooting phase, more or less nothing happened. My Sulphur Hounds killed his Emperor's Champion. I started off with the Flamers because it's just easy to remember and keep track of. They were able to kill him, so finally do that 1 wound. And then my Marshal shot at his infiltrators, doing nothing. And then my Cataphrone Destroyers supercharged, shot at his Land Raider, and they did nothing except take 2 mortal wounds on themselves. So, wonderful shooting phase. And yeah, that was it. Alright, you guys, so for the charge phase, my green and red Sidonians both charged the green ones into his Assault Centurions, and they were successful. And the red ones into his Redemptor, and they initially failed with double 1s. They literally needed a 1 and a 2. And then, so I used my only command point to do that. And lo and behold, they got a 1 and a 2 on the second try. So they got this really crazy conga line thing going on. And so I know that is going to be unfortunate for me later. But we'll see just how unfortunate. And then his captain heroically intervened.
One thing to note is my Assault Centurions also overwatched. And since the enemy was so close, I got the full fire of my guns. So my Hurricane Bolters with 96 shots doing tons of damage managed to do a total of like 4 wounds total, which finished off 1 and did 3 wounds to another. 1 Melta got through, but he was able to save it with a 6-up invulnerable save, so that was disappointing. And that was the charge phase.
That's good. Alright, you guys, so for combat, my green Sidonians swung first, and they were able to take out 2.5 of the Centurions. Yeah, because he had a Feel No Pain on the Apothecary, and he saved 1 of them, so that kept that other Centurion from dying, essentially. And then I swung with my red Sidonians. Now only 3 were able to swing just because of the unfortunate positioning. But they were still able to bring the Redemptor down to 4 wounds left. Just because of the sheer amount of damage that these guys can put out. It's kind of crazy. And yes, that was it actually for all of my combat.
And then for me, my captain swung. He had always strike first, but like it didn't matter in this point because it would interrupt the red squad from going first. So it didn't matter. He swung and he finished off 1 and did some wounds to another Dragoon. Then Assault Centurion, my Redemptor Dreadnought swung back, did only 4 wounds to 1 guy. Then my Assault Centurions, Brother Sergeant Chadius swung with his hitting on 2s, but my opponent has something that makes it -1, so he hit on 3s. He managed to kill 1, I believe, and the other one swung and, well, brought them down to 2 full health ones, so just barely. They're doing their best, but it's a very tight race, so we'll see what happens. And that is the end of the fight phase.
Alright, you guys, so I had 2 points for my primaries this turn. Conversion, I was able to hold on to side objectives. Accretion of Knowledge I got from killing his Emperor's Champion, but I don't know if that was last turn and it was already on there or not. I can't remember. But I did get Uncharted Sequencing because I am also controlling the one that I thought I would be controlling at this point in the game. And then obviously 0 Nephilim data because I literally just don't have anything at this point that can do it. So that's unfortunate. But that is all my points.
And as for me, at the end of this turn, he has killed 2 units this battle round, and I have killed 3. So I will get 1 grind them down for this battle round. My Nephilim data did fail. And that is the turn. Alright, so for the movement phase, my initiates moved up on the right side of the Sidonian Dragoons, and Grimaldus took the left flank. In the command phase, though, his litanies for Litany of Hate failed. He rolled a 1. Then Litany of Remorseless Persecution for these initiates went off, so they will be doing mortal wounds on 6s to wound. Then after that, on the bottom, my Captain Terminator Armor, I'm going to trust in his toughness, or endurance overall, and moved him towards my opponent's Warlord and such. And yeah, that's pretty much it there. And after that, my Apothecary moved a little bit into the Hot Spring Mud, and then he healed up one Assault Centurion, and he brought one back because he has Selfless Healer. And that was my movement phase. Alright, so for the shooting phase, I started up top with the Red Redemptor Dreadnought, fired into the Sidonian Dragoons. Did absolutely nothing, because he's -1 to hit, he's bracketed, so he's hitting on 5s. Absolutely terrible. Then the Land Raider Crusader mag dumped his Cerberus Sulphur Hounds, and killed quite a few. And then the Infiltrators then mag dumped them, because they're in rapid fire range, was a good amount of shots. Killed quite a lot, so they're going to take a good morale test. My Captain then fired his Combi Melta into his Warlord. Did nothing. Because my opponent saved it on a 5-up invuln save. That was terrible. And that was the shooting phase. Alright, so for the charge phase, Grimaldus and the Initiates charge in. I don't even bother rolling because it's 1 inch, and there's no terrain that can subtract their movement, so there's no point. And then I had my Captain Terminator Armor charge his Skitarii Marshal. Made it in with a 5, so he looped around a bit.
Phase, so you can't interrupt. So I'm going to start off with my Always Fight First charge. 6 attacks. What's that? All hit. Hold on. No, that's it. Okay, yeah, you can. Always wound. 6 at -4. 2 damage each. Fails 2, he dies. Looks like it's all 5s. No, it's not. Come on, guys. My only character. You know what? I'm actually going to pile him in here. That way you can't shoot him. Maybe. All I have to do is just pull him back. You're right. So screw you. You can still do it if you want. Alright, then up top here, Grimaldus will swing. What do you got, Grimaldus? You have 5 attacks. You are -1 to hit, so don't forget that. That's the, I guess it's 3, so it doesn't matter. Toughness 6, so 4 is strength 6, so got it. 1 at -2, 2 damage. Well, not that, so that guy goes. Alright, up here, initiate with Chainsword, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is 15, 16 attacks. Litany of Hate is not off. Wait, you're -1 to hit. And there's 4 3s in there. Dang it, I forgot. Oh, anyway. You want to just take 4 dice out and then reroll them? Sure. Better. 4 at -1. They put a 3 up, so 4s. Nice. That is monstrously disappointing, and it is... Then my planes? Yeah, your choice. I'm gonna go the obvious place. I'm gonna spend my only command point to have their exploding 6s on 5s, and they're just gonna hope for the best. They need 3s. That's not great. Oh, no, there's 5s, okay. So 2, 4, 6. And then 3s. Double exploding 6s? Mm-hmm. -2. 3s. The 1 dies. Not yet. So, fix it as guessed. Okay, yeah, I guess you can do it then. Okay, 1 goes through. 1 dies. And then, last but not least, 1 takes 2 wounds. Really 2 wounds. Okay, my swing's back. Shoot, I'll go with your Redemptor Dreadnought with 5 attacks, because my vow. -1 to hit. Oh my god. 1 at -4. And boom! No. Okay, so that's going to be 5. And I will swing with these guys. Let me... there, that's... while you're doing those swings, I'm gonna drink. Oh, no. That's not worth it. Okay. Alright. Let me know when you're back. Alright, so 3 guys are going to swing on your initiates, and then 2 are going to swing on the Redemptor. Try and finish him off. So I'll start with the 3 on the initiates. That is 12 swings with the exploding 6s. They need 2s, and then they get 4 shots. 2, 4, yeah. And then they will need 2s. 11 at -2. Wait, is it all -2? 4s. Yep. 2 damage each. 6. That's 1, 2. That's the squad. Just barely the squad, though. And then this is the 2 on the Redemptor. Yeah. That's bad. And 2s. So these are -2. 4. Are you freaking kidding me? They explode. No. And they will consolidate. The guy in base contact can't move. Is that for consolidation as well? Yeah, if you're in base contact, you can't actually do the movement. Alright, then over here, Centurion. Alright, so piling in. I think he's in half, so. Alright, so. First I'm gonna start off with Chadius. He has 6 attacks. My gun are just more attacks. He has +1 to hit, +1 wound, and 1 attack. So the -1 and the +1 even out here. Yeah. So these all hit. So 3 at -5. Yeah, no, nothing. Yeah, and this is 3 damage each. So 1 dies and 1 has half. And then the other guy, he's 4s. He's too far out of combat, the other guy. It's the same guy. It's the same squad. Oh, that's right. That's right. Never mind. Alright, so yours toughness 6. Okay, yeah, so 2 at -5. Squad wiped. Yep. Now finally something good happened. Doggone it. Might as well. These guys will consolidate up to here because they have to, because that's the closest enemy. Yeah. And that's it for the fight phase.
Alright, so for points, I controlled 1, I controlled 2. I have 1 in the middle no man's land, so that I got 2 points for conversion. Shock tactics, I didn't take anything from my opponent. Grind them down, it's tied right now, and so he has to really fail, and I have to do amazing next turn. Retrieve Nephilim data. My guys at my home objective got it off, so that's a total of 4 points so far. We'll see what happens. And yeah, it's really outmaneuvered, but somehow I'm still fighting.
Alright, you guys, so for my, I don't even know what this is called, my movement phase, my Corpse Sakari Electro Priest ran. He only rolled a 3, so he didn't go very far, but I also kept him out of line of sight of the Land Raider, so that way he can't actually get shot. Then my Sulfur Hounds just kind of got closer to his infiltrators without leaving the objective, because that is the one that I need to be holding right now. My Cataphrons scooted back, so they also cannot be seen by the Land Raider, or at least they shouldn't be. That was the goal. So I'll have that noted. And then obviously the Red Sidonians stayed in combat because they're about to beat the mess out of Chaplain Grimaldus. And that was it. That was my movement phase. Alright, you guys, so for shooting, my Cataphrons shot at his Captain and Terminator armor. He did a bunch of saves, and so only 1 went through. Then my Corpus Scari tried to shoot at him, did nothing, and then my Sulfur Hounds tried to shoot at his infiltrators, and they did nothing, and that was all my shooting.
Yeah.
Alright, you guys, so the only combat was my Sidonian Dragoons, and they swung, so I spent 1 CP for the Chain Taser Protocol Stratagem. So basically, on 5s, their things double explode. And so they were able to put through I don't even know how many wounds, but he failed a whole bunch of them. So Grimaldus was very much dead. And yeah, they tased him with their. All right, you guys. So for this turn, I controlled more. As far as primaries go, I got 2 points for conversion, so the mission secondary of just holding a no man's land objective. I killed Grimaldus, so I got accretion of knowledge, uncharted sequencing, so on the objective that I thought I was going to be at, I was, and so I got 3 points there. And so that was my turn in points.
Alright, so for the movement phase, pivoted my Land Raider around a bit. Actually, I should have moved him back just a tiny bit so he would be in the mud heavily. Apart from that, my Captain Terminator armor moved up towards his home objective. My infiltrators dropped down a level. My Assault Centurions got out of the mud. And at the end of the movement phase, Apothecary healed them up to full and brought one back with Selfless Healer. And that was my movement phase. Alright, so for the shooting phase, very complicated. So the Land Raider mag dumped the Dragoons, was able to kill one and almost finish off a second. Then my Assault Centurions split fired. One of them could fire their meltaguns at the guys that were on the bottom right objective, and so he fired his meltaguns on there, but all their Hurricane Bolters fired at the Sidonian Dragoons and did some wounds. Then the infiltrators, mag dumped them. I only wanted to wound them a lot until there was only like one left or maybe two left because I wanted to charge them because it was only a 4-inch charge. And then the whole squad was wiped out. So that ruined me. Then the Terminator captain fired at the guys up top with his bolt gun, trying to do one wound with that in order to finish off one guy who had one wound left. Failed. So he fired his Melta, and that successfully finished off the guy, but I was hoping to get 2. And that is my shooting phase. Alright, for the charge phase, a long ploy of getting my captain on their home objective, so I charged the Electro Priest to gain a few inches, and I rolled double once, but I was still good. Alright, in the fight phase, I got 2 inches closer on that Electro Priest. I beat him to death, and then I consolidated 3 inches towards his home objective. I'm slowly making it there. We're getting there. And yeah, that was my turn. Alright, so for points, I controlled 1, controlled 2. Conversion, I took, well, I have the middle, or I have some no man's land, so I get 2 points. Shock Tactics, I took nothing from him. Unfortunately, they died there on the post, so I couldn't charge it and take it. Grind them down, I got 2 kills. He hasn't gotten any this turn. And Nephilim Data is not happening anymore. And that's where I stand.
Alright, you guys, so for movement, my Cataphrons moved into a wedge formation. Hopefully to just shoot better, but who knows. And then my Sidonians moved up to basically try and get me about 12 points, give or take. 3 for killing the Land Raider, 3 for killing the Apothecary, 3 for taking my objective that I thought I would be at this point, and then there was something else I forget. But anyway, so they're going to try and do that by doing a whole bunch of damage and killing stuff, and we will see how we go. Alright, you guys, so my Cataphron shot at his captain, and they had, I don't know, 5 shots go through from the plasma guns, and then he saved all of them except for 1 on a 4-up, which is not statistical. And then their rapid-fire guns had 8 shots, and I think 4 of those went through. No, 3 of those went through, but he saved all of those, which again is not statistical. But, you know, whatever. So that was the shooting phase. You guys, so on this charge, I was going to charge the Apothecary and the Land Raider. So I needed an 8 to do that, and so I had a CP, which, because of something we'll talk about in a second, but I rolled a 7 the first time, and then I used my CP, and then I rolled double ones, so they failed the charge. And that was my charge phase. Alright, you guys, so really quick, what we found out was that, or what our theory is as far as the command points, because my commander died, and on this mission one, it says that I don't gain the CP command point bonus. However, according to what it says in the conversion, it says that the extra point in his turn is basically a bonus, so that there's still 1 command point that you would gain per battle phase. And so that is the theory. So because in the mission rules it says Battle Forge CP bonus, so it refers to it as a bonus, and then the thing when your warlord dies, it says that you lose that bonus one. So I thought our theory is that I still had 1 command point. Then because of the failed charge, we decided to call it, and so he won by 3 points. However, we theory hammered it. If I had just charged the Land Raider, I actually would have won by 4 points. So, because I would have destroyed the Land Raider, and then I would have consolidated onto the objective, giving me the 6 points. And so with the points that he had at the time, he would have only, his 61 was his total end points. Because it was a long theory hammer. So even though he would table me, I would have won by points, because there's no way that those 4 guys would have survived the Assault Centurions after that. So fun fact, the greedy charge, and really I didn't even think about it that way. I literally just wanted to fight this stupid apothecary. But that is actually what cost me the game. And not by much though, so this was actually a really close game. It didn't feel very close, but it was. So anyway, so we're gonna head into the post game, where we talk about the MVPs, LVPs, and all that stuff.
Alright, since we decided to call it, this is the end game. So MVP, LVP. So for me, LVP. In this game, tactically, it was an absolute massacre. I was stopped at every turn. I got charged first all the time. I basically took tons of hits first, so it was an uphill battle. If I would have went second, I probably would have won by a lot, just the way things were. So I'm going to judge LVP and MVP this game by performance, who did the best or worst. So LVP, I'm going to have to give it to the Neophytes. Well, Initiates as well, because they're part of the same squad. These guys got just absolutely massacred, and when their Initiates got to swing back, they barely did anything. They did a few wounds. I mean, they did a good amount of wounds against the Ruststalkers, but when they fought against the Dragoons, I mean, they did literally nothing, so they were the worst performing. I didn't expect the Ruststalkers to all of a sudden basically teleport to beside them. I thought I was being cunning with how I moved them so that he couldn't charge directly, but he was able to just easily walk around and charge around. So that's
what happens when you don't have a fully enclosed wall.
Yeah.
Just walk around it.
So these were the worst performing, so they are without a doubt the LVP. MVP, however, is kind of a tight race because it's more of a group effort kind of thing. So, Land Raider. This, you know what, they may not be the greatest for their points and stuff, but these things are rocks. They go places, they sit there, and they don't die. We talked about that. My theory is that because they don't do a lot of damage, they're kind of ignored, and so they just sit there peppering things with their ridiculous toughness and their ridiculous wounds. Yeah,
so that's my theory.
So they're a wall with guns, essentially, that can also transport troops. So he did very well. He held the objective. He brought me tons of points, and he has a very high kill count. He killed a lot of the Dragoons and everything else. And they have, of course, Brother Sergeant Chadius, with the Assault Centurions. He slaughtered a lot. Him and his squad were very important. He personally slaughtered 3 Dragoons, easy. His squad slaughtered 4 or 5. Their shooting was massive. They absolutely obliterated a lot of the things they dealt with in Overwatch or in their regular shooting. Even with Theory Hammer, they would have gone further because it was heavily in their favor. But their contribution was very important and good, but they didn't win the game. They were a very important tool, but they weren't there. Apothecary saved 3 Centurions and healed them up, and then in the last turn would have brought the squad back to full health or full numbers. So strategically insanely important for wiping out the enemy with guns and stuff, because he kept bringing back the heavy duty fighters. And then of course there's my captain, who took only 2 wounds from his heavy firing cataphrons in the back, but he was instrumental. He killed one Dragoon. He killed the enemy Warlord. He made a beeline to their home objective. He denied it to them, costing them 1 victory point for the secondary. And he was slaughtering them, so he's like very strategically important. So when it comes to MVP, LVP, this is honestly, I actually can't decide because none of them won the game, but all of them were so instrumental in the game. I can't think of who is more important. So I'm just going to go back down to who brought me the most victory points. And so that is the Land Raider. He sat on the objective and he scored me points. So he is the MVP just because he brought me victory points. That was it. And yeah. And I will give an honorary mention because I completely forgot about his existence. Emperor's Champion is the actual LVP. I forgot his existence. All he did was run up, get completely shot, killed one guy, and died. He's the actual LVP. He was so terrible, I completely forgot about his existence until right now. So, LVP there. Alright, how about you? What's your stuff?
Well, so for me, my MVP, I think 100% was the Sidonian Dragoons.
Absolutely.
They were way better than I thought. That like they look good on paper, and I was like, well, I've been lied to many times by that. But I'll tell you what, they really did the trick.
Yeah, that was impressive. Their speed, their wounds, their saves, their damage, -1 to hit them.
It's just double exploding sixes. Like,
yeah, it's like 5.
It's impressive.
1 CP turns 5 ups into double exploding sixes. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Granted, each one of those squads was 420 points.
They made up for that. Their speed, their movement.
100%, yeah. But still, like that's a fifth of my army. So they were amazing. A secondary, nowhere near as close, but way closer than the rest of my army, was, I would say, the Rust Stalkers. Like, they're actually pretty, like, they're fragile, so I didn't realize they were toughness 3. Honestly, I was looking at their attacks, really, and, like, the damage that they could do, because they have the mortal wounds on 6s with no caps to wound, so I was like, oh, that's really good, I thought. I think they only actually, they did, like, 7, but anyway, not important. They were pretty fragile, but their damage output, like, they have really, really high burst damage, and so that was really cool, because there's even that 1 CP stratagem to give all of them an extra attack, and so, like, they're a good second, I thought, for MVP, but definitely the Dragoons, 100%.
Yeah.
Tough, strong, fast, dangerous. They have the data tether, so I could put abilities on things on them from anywhere on the board. Like, it's impressive. Which segues into the least impressive unit, the LVP, my Cataphren Destroyers. So I took these dingbats because the Rise Forge World had a stratagem for plasma, which I never even had a chance to, never had the opportunity where it was worth using, which gave their plasma shots an additional damage. So the supercharged would have been 3 damage, the regular is 2 damage. They literally, that ballistic skill 4 just killed them. They never, I think they did, 2 wounds to your character.
Yeah, and they did like 6 wounds to my Land Raider.
No, that was the other Cataphrons.
Oh, right, the melee ones. Never mind.
Did nothing. They literally just sat there. And so they were LVP, 100%. If I had to pick a close one, not because I dislike them, they just got blown out of the water, would be the Corpsicari Electro Priests. They're not super, like, even their paper stats, strength 3, 2 attacks, but they also have the double exploding 6s, and they have some other stuff. So they literally just, though they weren't able to do anything. And then I probably played the one survivor left. I probably should have just had him move back to sit on my home objective in cover while the Cataphrons move forward. But yeah, so Cataphren 100% LVP. At least for this list. I assume because they are a Mechanicus unit that there are probably ways to do a lot more with them. But because I was focusing more on the Skitarii side of things, they weren't really a good fit. I didn't even actually need to take them. I just wanted to try them out. So I actually could have taken other better units, probably like some more fast attacks, because Adeptus Mechanicus has a weird amount of fast attacks.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could have taken some Castellan robots. I was originally going to take some of them, but the Sidonians took up so many points. I was like, well, I'll just boot the Castellans. But anyway, so yeah, MVP, Sidonians, the Dragoons, LVPs, Cataphren Destroyers. Even the other Cataphrons they were able to punch stuff, and that's how they did the 6 damage to your Land Raider. Before they died horribly, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. What do you think? I think this list is a little is different from your last time you played them.
Yeah, it's more refined. The pieces are still there. I just wasn't out. So I did.
I remember Emperor's Champion. I remember
Emperor's Champion is he's a disappointment. If he goes against characters, he is S tier. If he's not, he just fails horribly. And so it's like it's hard for me to justify taking him. He's cool and all, but like just not there.
I only had one character. If you fought the sisters from last week,
yeah,
all 8 of my characters, he would have had a field day.
Yeah, but like my Centurions are niche units depending on them. But like with the Feast of Blades or whatever, here, whatever the thing is called. Yeah, the stratagem here. Yeah, the Champion of the Feast. An incredible thing because it turns him into a super powerful character. Hitting on 2s with this weapon is ridiculous. AP minus 4, damage 3, no negatives to swinging, and melted guns and stuff. So he has 5 wounds. The thing won't show it.
You know what you could even do if you really wanted to? Even try and mastercraft his siege drills. Like relic him as a sergeant. Do damage 4. That would be impressive.
That was like, so originally I gave him an item that would make it so he gets damage 1, minus 1 damage to him, or stuff like that, or he would treat AP minus 1 and AP minus 2 as 0. But like it was 15 points, and I'd have to specifically have him take wounds, and he was more important as a damage dealer, and the others would take the wounds, and the apothecary would be fine. So it's like it's that balance. But yeah, and the Captain, Tanahasar Bones, making him insanely tough. Like, Captain Terminator armor is not meta. It's not the strongest it could be. I could take a Gravis guy with like a Power Fist.
You did roll a lot of saves, though, for him.
Yeah.
He could have died statistically, but...
Yeah, but, like, I can only take 1 damage each.
Tanahasar Bones, though, that is annoying, but you had the misfortune of mismatching him, or of him being mismatched against the Cataphrons that had plasma. But of course, again, you rolled a billion 4-up invulns, so
yeah, I had faith in him. So overall, it's like Black Templars is just fun. Not in the way you would expect. They're you could use them as a horde, Astartes unit army, but they have a lot of the interesting charm. The Land Raiders, they're the only ones where they have a stratagem where the Land Raider can move, have the guys pop out, and then charge. Well, they can pop out, shoot everything, and then charge. So the only ones who have that. Yeah, so it's a lot.
Raven Guard, they have that. But it's not in a Crusader, it's a stratagem where they can forward deploy within 9 inches of the enemy.
Yeah, so it's just like these small little things. It's like Black Templar has a lot of cool and interesting things about it, and they can bring a lot of strength to it, but like the way I'm playing it, Grimaldus isn't that good. Emperor's Champion isn't that good. Grimaldus because he gives buffs to troops, and I have very few of them. I brought these infiltrators to hold the backline.
He can't even buff your Centurions because they're not core.
Yeah, and so it's like, so I am playing a very specific niche type of Black Templar. I mean, the only reason I brought infiltrators is because it is so important that I keep all the attention in the front, because I can't keep going back and forward because a lot of my army is just super slow moving. So the infiltrators are incredibly important to push forward. So really, I don't have that many Crusaders. I brought them because it's there. It's kind of coolish for what they are. But like, I could drop the Crusaders and Grimaldus and probably bring another Land Raider and just screw you over with 2 walls. Maybe I'll try that one day, because the way I'm playing it is just basically I see the cool parts of the list. It's just Land Raider charging forward and disgorging troops. So that's what I see. Well, how's your overall take on the Mechanicus, this list?
Well, I actually they are a slightly complicated army. So because then you have two different sides of the units. You have the Doctrina Imperatives units, and then which I guess are second tier, because they're not true I guess whatever's. But then you have the Canticles of the Omnissiah groups. So that's kind of hard to have so split rules. But what is cool is that you can choose whether or not to move on from them. Unlike the Space Marines, they have to move through their different whatevers. You actually get to choose if you want to roll through them. So that's kind of cool. So the Sidonians, I basically, once I hit that weapon skill +1 one for Doctrina Imperatives, I kept it there. They literally did move it. So they were hitting on 2s, and then with the Rise Forge World, they were wounding on 2s against everything except your Land Raider, which is crazy. Because they're coming in swinging at strength 8 with their taser lances. But yeah, I was kind of worried initially because I'd never seen anyone really do combat AdMech. And I was maybe there's a reason for that. But I was they got such nice units for it. Yeah. Now, I shouldn't have taken the Cataphrons, and I probably would have kept out the Corpsicari, having played them now. I actually would have, the rest of the list though, I like the Raiders, I like the Sulphur Hounds. I didn't get to use them how I wanted to, fully, but I mean, I like them. I would have taken there was a flyer that they had that looked pretty cool. I think it was a bomber of some kind. And then other guys with mechanical wings. I thought they would have been fun, but I ran out of points because I didn't realize how expensive the Sidonians were, but they were worth it, 100%.
Yeah.
So I did enjoy AdMech. I think it seems that you need to kind of lean. Now, I've only played them one time, so this could be horribly wrong. But it seems that you need to lean into one side or the other, either the Doctrina Imperatives or the Canticles.
Yeah, I played them twice, and that's what it seems like, because you have to spend too many points getting the abilities to activate these Doctrina or Canticles, and so it's better to be one or the other because you can have better synergy and more units to call upon, sadly. Yeah. So.
Now, what's interesting is that the data tether units, so you can be anywhere on the map and give data tether stuff to other data tether units. So that was really cool. So I was able to give data tether abilities to different sergeants, and they were able to just kind of plant them as they went. And so I thought that was actually really cool. Even I was able to give a relic to the Rust Stalker guy. I think it was a relic. Yeah. Where he had an aura of exploding 6s. So if they had charged in on a really difficult unit, and then the Sidonians came in and charged in as well, they would have had triple exploding 6s. That would have been ridiculous. I don't even know if that's technically legal, because I've never heard of it, but anyway. But so I really liked AdMech. I think having tried the list, I would obviously take out the things that I mentioned. I did not enjoy the Cataphrons. However, again, it was the 2 Cataphron units and the Electro Priests that were the only Canonical units. So I feel if I had leaned into the Canonical side of it, which I guess maybe is more on the shooty side, they probably would have done better. But I don't know. I really liked AdMech. I was surprised how much I enjoyed playing them. Because they're actually pretty nifty. They do a lot of damage, but some of their units are also really fragile. I guess you get used to playing Space Marines that are toughness 4, and then you hit a bunch of robot guys that are only toughness 3, I guess it was really the Rust Stalkers and the Priests. Everything else was bigger robots. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I liked the Raiders. They can ignore look out, sir, and they do mortal wounds on 6s to shoot, which is pretty cool. And then the Sulfur Hounds, when they're in combat, they're at -1 strength and toughness. So even them, you could like run around and like run them into a combat where someone else is already fighting to just debuff them. Like it was interesting. So I actually really liked that mech. I was surprised.
Yeah.
Now, if I played them again, I would either tweak this list or do something drastically different. Because they have actually a lot of I think there was 8 of them, 8 Forge Worlds. And then that's not even mentioning all of the non-generic Forge World traits that you could take. What are they called? Hold on.
Well, anyway, this is taking a bit too much.
Distant Worlds, the Distant Forge Worlds.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, I enjoyed AdMech. It's unfortunate that I didn't realize how close the points were, and if I had just focused on killing the Land Raider, that it would actually be an AdMech victory here. But I mean, you know, it is what it is. I don't necessarily play to win. I just kind of I enjoy playing. So.
Well, I played to win.
I wanted to get all of the points. Kill that stupid apothecary.
Alright.
All
right then. So, GG's.